Welcome to Dadograms. Today we're diving into something that affects every one of us. Perspectives. How we see the world and how often that perspective limits our ability to work with, understand, or even tolerate others. Now, to make this message stick, I'm going to walk you through a few images and stories that might totally shift how you see the world around you. I've used these images to teach thousands of military pilots and aircrew members at the Naval School of Aviation Safety. They're entertaining and revealing, and I recommend you sharing them with others and hearing their take, because you'll be surprised at how differently we all see the world around us. So take a look at this image. In this simple cartoon, I always like to ask all the people who see this one simple question: who's right? Inevitably, I get the same answer. They both are. But that would also imply that they are both, in fact, wrong. But this isn't a difficult thing to get past. In the real world, if we're ever faced in a situation where we see things from different perspectives, literally, we can use our words to communicate and therefore plant the idea or image in another person's mind so that they fully understand where we're coming from. A very simple example of this is if you're flying in a helicopter like the kind I used to fly. In this picture, an SH-60 Bravo Seahawk, you can see a side window, you can see a front window, you can see a chin bubble window, and in the back you can see the aircrewman's window. And this is kind of what it looks like from inside of this type of aircraft. So if I was flying in the left front seat, I can see directly in front of me, all the way to the left, and down through the chin bubble at my feet. If I'm in the right seat, I can see directly in front of me, all the way to the right, and down through the chin bubble at things underneath me on the right side. And the aircrewman can see straight out to the left and can see a bit out of a window on the right, but cannot see forward. So if we're flying out in the middle of nowhere in the ocean, and I look down through my chin bubble in that left seat, and I happen to see this image, I can then describe it. I see a sailboat with two sails, they're both white, and it's got a white hull. Now, as soon as I've used those words to describe the image that I'm seeing, I have just helped every single person in the aircrew understand exactly what I'm seeing, even though they can't see it yet. Then when we turn and they are able to put their eyes on, they recognize exactly what I had described and know it's the exact same thing that I had just seen a moment ago. This is a 6 versus 9 type scenario. It's very simple. We can use our words to help each other understand why we see things from our perspective. But things get much more complicated than this. Check out this next image. And when the next image comes up, I want you to say out loud who you see. Who do you see in this image? Do you see the young lady or do you see the old lady? They are both in this image, even though you might not see them both yet. Now, I do want to take a moment to describe each of them to you so that you can actually see them, because it's important that you do see them for this presentation. First, let's describe the old lady. She is looking to the left, and you see her side profile very much like this. Okay? And here you can see her nose. Here is her mouth and her chin. This is her eye, and this is her hair, and all of this flowing area back here, this is her scarf or something that she's wearing on her head. Now, for those of you who did see the old lady but can't see the young lady, let me describe her to you. Okay, she's also looking to the left, but she's looking slightly behind her, so she looks like I do in this particular situation. Here you can see her ear. You can see her jawline and her neck with a necklace. You can see her eyelash right here. Okay, so hopefully now that I've described them both, every single person who's watching this can see the old lady and the young lady. Now here's why this is important. This picture is called My Wife and My Mother-in-Law. And they find, generally speaking, those who hang out with an older crowd seem to see the old lady first. Those who hang out with a more youthful crowd see the young lady first. What that means is that when we're interpreting this image, we are bringing into it our own experiences and our own biases in the interpretation of it. And we do this all the time as we interpret what we hear or see all around us. A very simple example I can bring up from, again, aviation is this. check out this cloud. What do you see in this cloud? I happened to be out for a drive. I looked up in the sky and saw this, and I saw two very distinct images. Now, before I share them with you, I would like for you to take a look at it and see what images you see in the clouds. And if you would, put it into the comment section below so that we can all see how differently we see things, okay? So I clearly see a shark. And here he is. I'll kind of draw him out on the screen so you can see him. There's my shark, very clear and in the sky. The other thing I see that we have a lot of down here is a pelican. And here he is flying in this direction. So again, I have brought my biases into the interpretation of this picture, and we all do this all the time. But again, just by drawing it out or using our words, we can help each other understand things from our unique perspective. This again is a fairly simple situation, perhaps a little more complicated than the 6 versus 9 problem, but still something we can overcome with good communication. But not everything out there is this easy. Now let's look at something hard. I'm going to switch up another image, and when I do, as soon as it shows up on your screen, I want you to say out loud what two colors it consists of, okay? Here we go. What color is the dress? That's right, ladies and gentlemen, the old 2015, 2016 internet sensation is back. Now, for those of you who have never seen this before and don't understand what it means, let me explain it this way. I have always seen and will always see the exact image you're looking at right now consisting of two colors, blue and gold. Some of you out there are scratching your head thinking, what? Because you see it as either blue and black or white and gold. Weirdly enough, those are the three predominant ways people see this. Why do we see it this way? Who knows? There's some argument that says that we interpret it because of how our mind assumes the lighting is in the background. Others believe that it has to do with how close the wavelength thresholds are to these colors and how our eyes are slightly different from each other's. Regardless, we see this completely different. And if you don't know that, it can cause real problems. For me, the first time I ever saw this example was when my wife brought it up on a phone and she says, "Hey Jason, what color is this dress?" Well, what color am I going to say? It's blue and gold. And she started laughing and she says, "No, it's not. It's blue and black." And I'm like, that's not possible. I can tell my colors. And then my daughter comes up and goes, "You're both wrong. It's white and gold." And now I'm completely confused because my wife keeps laughing at us. My daughter and I are trying to figure out what the joke is, and we're kind of getting a little frustrated with it. And then she says the magic words that we need to know. She says, "It is a trick. We truly do see it differently." And only by actually knowing that did it make the situation something that I could actually deal with in my own mind. Then I got curious about it and I studied up on it. And then the next thing I had to know for my own sanity's sake was the truth. What was the truth? And the only way you're going to know the truth about something like this is to find a truth sayer. Who's the truth sayer when it comes to the dress? As it turns out, it is the manufacturer. And they came out and told everybody that this dress is blue and black. Much to my surprise, I'm wrong. I see it as blue and gold and always will, but it is blue and black. But at least I know it's a trick and there's a good reason why I see it differently. And then ultimately I do know the truth. And these are two things that we've got to seek whenever we find disagreements of this type. Let me give you a real world example of just how serious this kind of thing can be and how quite literally in our case, this very thing could have cost us our lives. Okay, I am one of the very few Navy pilots you're ever going to meet who has actually seen, for real, a flying ship. Just like out of Peter Pan, I have seen one. Before you turn the video off, let me explain what I mean. I was flying as a new pilot, a 2P or a second pilot, in the SH-60 Bravo Seahawk. And I had a senior aircraft commander right next to me, a HAC, a helicopter aircraft commander, and I had an air crewman back behind us. We were flying off the coast of Ecuador doing drug enforcement operations with the Coast Guard. We'd flown all night long and were tired, And as the sun started coming up, we realized that the water was absolutely flat calm, and it looked just like a mirror reflecting the sky. There was no horizon because the haze out there, or fog in the air, was so thick that it made a horizon invisible. And then of course the sky, for some reason, because of the way the sun was rising, had turned pink, which means it reflected onto the water that was pink, and everything around us was pink. It was like we were flying in a pink bubble. And as we flew along, we're getting ready to come back to our ship to land, I turned the aircraft into a 25-degree angle of bank turn, and we're starting to turn. And we're just driving along in this long, slow turn for quite some time as we're heading back to our ship. And all of a sudden, out my left window, I can see it very clearly. I see a ship flying right up into the sky. It looked like a rocket ship because you could see the propeller wake behind it and everything. But it was shooting straight up into the sky. And in surprise, I said, "My God, a flying ship." My hack, my aircraft commander next to me, looks at me like I'm out of my mind. Then he says it, and he says these fateful words: "Yep, I've got vertigo too." And that's what our air crewman in the back said. "I'm completely upside down back here." That meant that all of us were seeing the exact same thing, a flying ship, despite the fact that it can't exist. We know, though, that it's a trick. Ships don't really fly. Something else was wrong, and that wrong thing was right in here on all three of us. We had what's called spatial disorientation, or spatial D. And pilots get this on occasion, and when they do, it can be very dangerous and costly. For those of you who know who Kobe Bryant was and how he died in a helicopter crash, his pilot got spatial disorientation, thought he was flying straight and level, but he was actually flying into an angle that had him heading downward and into the side of a mountain. Spatial D can get you killed. But we're highly trained Navy pilots. We knew it was a trick. We knew something wasn't right. So we needed to know the truth. So we had to seek a truth sayer. And when you're in an aircraft, there is only one truth sayer, and that is your instrument panel. All of our eyes went right on our instruments. We focused on this big round thing right there in the middle called an attitude indicator. I realized I was still in a 25-degree angle bank. I turned my wings level. The ship went right back into the water where it belonged, now it's sailing away from us as opposed to climbing into the sky. We recaged our internal gyros in our own mind and ears, and then we turned towards our ship and we headed home because we were done for flying that day. We were not in the best state of mind to keep going. So you can see just how important this kind of thing is, and how, if it's not handled correctly, can quite literally cost you everything. Now, these mind tricks are all around us and hard to recognize and even harder to get past. In a world filled with opinion, division, and digital noise, how do we separate truth from perception? How do we know when we're seeing something clearly or when we're just experiencing our own version of reality? And you can ask those questions about all kinds of hot button issues: politics, race, economics, gender, religion. One person sees a hero, another sees a villain. One person sees injustice, another sees overreaction. One person hears the truth and another hears propaganda. Sometimes these are 6 versus 9 problems, solvable by listening to others and changing angles, by good communication with each other. Sometimes they're like the picture of my wife and my mother-in-law, where we interpret what we see based on our own experiences or our own biases that shape how we interpret the world. And if we know this going in, we can listen and we can see perspectives of others and evolve our own thinking. But sometimes they're like the dress, utterly polarizing, allowing no chance of agreement unless an outside, trusted source steps in and explains the truth that we simply cannot see or understand on our own. But what if people don't trust the source? Or worse, what if the source is untrustworthy? Well, these are real dangers, and they always have been. In aviation, we trusted our instrument panel. In life, people have to decide who and what they will trust when their own senses and emotions fail them. Unfortunately, and I mean unfortunately, many people turn to social media, partisan news, or echo chambers as their truth sayer. And often they are not truth sayers, and this isn't good. Sometimes the truth sayers that we do end up trusting aren't wise and they aren't neutral. They're just loud, they're consistent, and they seize moments of chaos to plant their message. Over time, they shape culture and rewrite norms. We've seen this during major societal flashpoints, pandemic lockdowns, viral incidences of injustice, global protests, or political upheaval. During these moments, you often hear louder calls for things like defunding the police, universal income, anti-vaccines, anti-landlord rhetoric, radical environmentalism, redistribution models, and on and on. Some of these ideas are worthy of debate, others are opportunistic hijackings of real pain. But either way, they catch fire fast. And if we're not paying attention, we can find ourselves believing something that we've never truly examined in depth. So what's the takeaway? What do we do? First, recognize that your perspective isn't the only one. And hopefully, by having seen these pictures in the beginning and listening to me talk, you should have a sense for that now. Second, listen. Really listen. Ask others how they see the situation. And don't just assume they're wrong because their view is different than yours, but also don't assume they're right. I used to work for a 4-star admiral who was a nuke, meaning his community was that of the nuclear-powered submarine force. And the nukes, they think differently than most people. He would always tell us to have a questioning attitude. Don't take anything at face value the first time you hear it. Question everything. Now, that does not mean to be defiant or disrespectful. What that means is seek deep understanding of the situation until you find the truth, the real truth. Third, when in doubt, seek out a neutral, proven source. The instrument panel in life might be something like history, core values, scripture, time-tested wisdom. Look for patterns, look for outcomes, trusted sources that have no agenda but the truth. And they are out there, but they won't be easy. They are not going to be as quick as a scan of your favorite news sources or your favorite TikTok or Instagram post. They will take research and study more often than not. Sorry, that's just the way it is. And finally, be aware of people who use confusion and chaos to rewrite reality. The louder the moment, the more important it is to stay grounded. And I am here to tell you, if you watch from a distance long enough, you will be surprised at how things shift and move as they rewrite history right before your eyes. It is disturbing, and they are counting on you being gullible. So watch out. If you find you are pulled into partisan news or social media that has a specific message or agenda, I would highly recommend you go back and watch Dadogram 19, titled The Truth About the News You Watch and How to Use It to Your Advantage. Then when you're done with that one, go and watch Dadogram 20, titled Can You Be Brainwashed? What the Navy Teaches Its Pilots. These 2 Dadograms can help you a tremendous amount on your journey towards seeking the truth. So at the end of it, remember, we all want the same thing: clarity and understanding. And I truly believe we may not want it, but we also really need unity. Because just like Abraham Lincoln once said, a nation divided against itself cannot stand, which means we need to open our minds and see things from other perspectives. Ultimately, it makes us better and stronger, not weaker and divided, which is the point of all of this. The ability to move through life without crashing into each other because we mistook the horizon for a mountainside. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to Dadograms and watch another episode to keep learning. Until next time, well, have a good one.